What is truth? Ask that question and chances are you'll get many different responses. But does that mean there is no truth? William Gairdner says absolutely not. His latest work, The Book of Absolutes, is a sharp critique of relativism, the dogma that all cultural and moral values are conditional, and that, as Einstein once proved, everything is relative.
Dr. Gairdner, can you just first of all tell us, why did you write this book now?
Well, I think now was because I got tired of going to social gatherings and trying to strike up a conversation with someone I didn't know. I would often try to mention something I thought was a fact of life, and I would hear them say, well, it's true for you, but it's not true for me. And this became very typical, and I would enjoy responding by saying, well, it can't be true and false at the same time. One of us must be wrong. And I would expect, a conversation to take place where we could work it out, like which one of us was wrong or right about this claim. And it was really discouraging to see that most people would just walk away and go have a drink with someone else. So I thought there's something wrong in this country. We got a population here which is becoming increasingly comfortable with the idea of not engaging in serious conversations and taking refuge in the relativistic idea that all truth is subjective. Therefore, there's no need to discuss it because it's true for me, but it's not true for you.
You say we kind of have a split personality where we, in public, say one thing, in private may do something else.
I would say that Canadians today are very comfortable letting themselves off the hook from a moral point of view, so they enjoy relativistic concepts such as it's true for you, but it's not true for me. In other words, I'll do what I want. Don't judge me. Don't be judgmental, all that kind of thing. Don't impose your morality on me, et cetera, et cetera. They're very relativistic in this way, easygoing, open-minded and all that kind of thing. But, steal their wallet or break a window in their car, and suddenly they become absolutists. Hey, that's wrong. Stealing is wrong. You can't damage my property. That sort of thing. So they lead a kind of a double life.
So relativity says there's many truths and that it's subjective.
And there's no single truth. There's no foundational truth that we can operate from. However, parallel with this kind of growing belief, which is all around us now, as I say, that's what I learned from these social gatherings. Parallel to that, there's always been people who've insisted otherwise. For example, there are anthropologists, and I deal with them in the Book of Absolutes. I have a chapter on anthropology, who have been for, at least a century, pulling together what they call human universals. These are things that are believed, practiced, behaviors, activities of all cultures and all human societies throughout history. Things they hold in common, and there are hundreds of those. Take the incest taboo, for example. It's a universal. All sorts of other cultural beliefs and values are common to all peoples. For example, a belief that there's such a thing as justice, or a belief that might does not make right. These things are commonly held by people all over the world.
But this shift towards relativism didn't happen overnight.
I think, first of all, there were ancient relativists like Protagoras. His thinking was popular for a long time, but really Plato and Aristotle demolished his arguments. And so it kind of died out until about the 16th century. Hobbes was famously a relativist, for example, and many others, especially in the 19th century, when you might say religion was fading as a public or common ground of belief, relativism started to creep in accordingly. Because most religions in the world have always relied on what you might call natural law. I have a chapter in the Book of Absolutes on natural law which discusses this, and I don't think the natural law ever goes away, but it is true that people can run from it, and they can run from it a lot harder when it's not being talked about or thought about by people in general.
And it was kind of a response to or against the idea of maybe modernism.
You could even say that in a sense it came out of the post-war, post-hippie sort of generation, and after all, the kids in that generation had a justifiable complaint. I mean, their parents, let's say, had made pretty much of a mess of the world, and there were lots of absolutes around when they were doing it. To a certain extent, relativism as a political belief came about as a struggle against absolutism in morality, et cetera, but it tended to backfire. For example, after the war, when the Nuremberg trials were taking place, the judges were sitting there in front of all these people who'd done such terrible things, and they basically said, what you did was wrong, and they would say, no, it wasn't, I obeyed the law. I was just following orders, that kind of thing. Well, the German judge, well, the international judges at Nuremberg had to invoke the natural law. They said, well, there is a higher law which you should have been obedient to, no matter what you were told. It doesn't excuse doing terrible things just because you were ordered to, et cetera, et cetera. So the natural law tends to bury its undertakers.
Right, and natural law being something that supersedes all culture.
I say that the natural law is a command of right reason, which follows nature for the common good. It doesn't follow nature for what is bad. For example, some people might say, well, anger is natural. Wanting to kill somebody that you don't like is natural. Well, it may be, but it doesn't follow the common good.
And our country was based, the founding of our country is based on natural law.
Absolutely. Well, you could say that the foundation of every religion is based on that concept. And I think every culture in the world, it's a human universal, subscribes to the idea of doing good and avoiding evil.
Okay, so let's articulate. What are those absolutes that we know?
Well, in the natural law, I've already mentioned a couple. For example, all cultures believe in justice. They may not believe that a particular instance of something or other is just, because there may be debates about that, but everybody believes that there's such a concept of justice. And as I said, things like might does not make right are universally believed. There are all sorts of things like that shared by cultures. In physics, I've mentioned already a few things, like there are constants of nature, which are absolute and constant and universal. I mean, they're throughout the cosmos. Speed of light, force of gravity, that kind of thing, and the laws of physics themselves. You can't do physics without it. Even when it comes to things like language, and there's a chapter on language in the book because it has so much to do with the misunderstandings of postmodern theory. In language theory itself, we find that even though languages differ on the surface, everybody walks around thinking, well, one language is different from the other, we find out that in fact there's something called a universal grammar, which underlies all languages. There are commonalities in structure and form and substance between all the languages of the world.